Welcome to the Hope and Wholeness Podcast, where we empower people to seize the day and flourish in life. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Duckworth, and I'm thrilled to have you aboard. I'm a disciple of Jesus, psychologist, husband, father, coach, real estate investor, and passionate mountain biker, and I'm here to walk alongside you. My mission? To infuse hope and foster wholeness into every aspect of your life. Each episode will give you a bird's eye view of authentic discussions on real life issues, followed by practical suggestions. Let's tackle your toughest questions and embark on this journey together.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Hope and Wholeness Podcast. I am here with my friend, Matt Burgess, today. And Matt is a good friend, and he is really all the brains and everything behind getting this podcast started. So thanks for helping me out.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to share with you guys about really my testimony, and I'm going to try to give you almost my life's testimony here today. We'll see how long this takes. But, as a first episode, I want you guys to really get to know me. Many of you, my friends and my family, know bits and pieces of this, but I really just want to put this all out there, hoping that it will be valuable and encouraging to all of you guys, and also hopefully give you a little bit of a foundation, I suppose you could say, for where I'm coming from as I'm sharing on these podcasts. And hopefully you will be inspired, find some hope, and get to know me a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, as most of you know, I'm Dr. Ryan Duckworth. I'm a clinical psychologist. I own and operate Hope and Wholeness Psychology Center. I'm also a real estate investor. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. And I recently also started coaching and consulting. And I get bored easily. So I do a lot of different things. And I've learned about myself that every few years, I've got to switch something up, do something new. So
Entrepreneur at heart. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. So, feel free to jump in, but I'll just tell you, I'm going to start with saying really how I accepted Jesus. I remember being probably around 8 years old, and me and my mom were driving together. I don't really remember why, but we were driving separately to Grace Youth Camp up at Silver Lake.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember a whole lot about the conversation other than we were talking about Jesus, and my mom asked me, do you want to accept Jesus into your heart? And I said yes. And we prayed. We were driving a white Pontiac Bonneville. It's probably like an 85 Bonneville or something like that. It's this old school car.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I accepted Jesus.
How old were you?
I think I was about 8-ish, maybe 7 or something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was now that I've helped lead my kids to Christ, it's an incredible experience. Yeah. So that was when I really accepted Jesus, and I feel like my life, my personality has always been pretty thankful and optimistic, positive, but it really, I think that has really been compounded by having the peace of joy inside of me.
Yeah.
So, the next really significant experience in my life was when I was 12 years old. I'd been playing hockey, and I went out onto the ice. It was literally my first time, maybe not my first time on ice, but my first time on ice to play hockey.
Oh, yeah.
And the coach was like, all right, everybody, I think it was literally the first thing he had us do. He's like, skate to the other end. And of course, me being me, I thought it was a race. So I was skating pretty good because I was used to rollerblading.
Okay, yeah.
But I did not know how to stop. So I'm flying down the ice, and I don't know, I remember having the thought, maybe at the center line, okay, how am I going to stop? Everyone else is way behind me. How am I going to stop? And I remember thinking, I'm just going to do this big turn, and see if I can do that. And I don't know, I must have been pretty close to the boards at that point in time by the time I decided what to do. And I tried to turn, and my legs kind of went out from underneath me. And I kind of went into the boards like this, one leg here and one leg here. And the boards just hit right here. And my femur went from here to here.
Oh, no.
Did you know that about me?
No, I did not know that. I knew you're an avid hockey player, but yeah, I did not know that happened.
Yeah. So that was crazy. I was wearing my favorite pair of black jeans, and I remember looking down and seeing my jeans going like this.
Oh man.
And I was like, oh my goodness. And of course, they had to cut my pants right off me
Yeah.
when the medics got there. And so went to the hospital and, had to have a surgery. I was 12. It was January 5th, the year 2000. And yeah, pretty sure it was 2000. That would make me 12. Yeah, it was 12.
Yeah.
So January 5th, the year 2000, went to the hospital, 6th grade, 12 years old, and spent 4 weeks in traction. So screw through the leg right here, up. I was laying on my back, and this was being pulled. They were trying to pull my femur from here back to like here.
Oh boy.
And so there was pulleys and stuff and weights on the other end. For those of you who don't know what traction is,
So you were like
it's
stuck.
I was bedridden for 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I did pee in a pee bottle and I pooped in a bedpan.
Oh,
So it was, and thankfully I was homeschooled, so I continued to be homeschooled. But I remember many friends, family visiting me. I remember specifically my youth pastor visiting me. There was a couple of coaches that came from the hockey rink that didn't know me too well that I think were trying to avoid being sued, but they were nice. But and people would comment like, wow, like Ryan, you have a positive attitude, like, wow. And the nurses, I remember them saying just how blessed they were by like my attitude and stuff. And I don't remember like a whole bunch of specific events.
Yeah.
But I remember talking about Jesus with the nurses, and something changed in me in those 4 weeks. I became, I think, more joyful, more, I don't remember experiencing stress during that time. I remember even pain, but I don't like have a bad memory. It's kind of funny. Candy will always ask me like, well, what about this event? And I'll tell it. She'll like, that is not how it went. You are only remembering the good things, Ryan. So I that's really, I think, a gift that
Focusing on the positive side of things.
yeah. And the negatives didn't really get me down too much.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a miserable experience physically,
Right. Yeah, I can only imagine.
but it solidified this grateful heart, I think, inside of me during that time. I was thankful for things.
Yeah.
And so 4 weeks in traction, 5 weeks in a full body cast with a bar in between my legs.
Like, would they strap it to one leg and then
Well,
it was attached on the other? Or
well, actually, they first gave me a brace.
okay.
So it had like a chest thing, and then this leg came down here and this leg down to my ankle. And I was in that for a week, and they went back and took an x-ray, and my bone was moving.
Oh,
And so they had to put me in an actual plaster cast.
oh,
And so they wrapped it, and then there was a bar. I don't even know what it was made of, because it was wrapped just like everything else, just wrapped to
oh,
me.
wow.
And so that was 5 weeks.
So you had like a cast on this leg and on this
Just
one?
left leg down to my knee, just above my knee, and this one all the way down to my ankle. And then obviously, like, probably, right below my sternum there.
Wow.
So that was 5 weeks. I did get to go home,
Yeah.
and we had a hospital bed set up in the basement, and
You stuck in bed most of the time too still?
yep, I could get into a wheelchair and kind of wheel myself around, but obviously I needed help getting out of the bed and everything. So yeah, then I got out of the cast after 5 weeks, and I couldn't walk, of course. And my knee could move about this much.
Oh boy. So you were only moving it like inch.
Little bit,
Yeah.
because everything it tightens up, if you don't use it. I didn't really know that. I knew they told me what to expect, but
Right.
oh man, so I remember really being happy about peeing and pooping on a regular toilet.
That's awesome.
That was a positive experience
Yeah.
in the first weeks after that.
The joys of a 12-year-old.
But yeah, then I had I don't remember exactly when I was able to walk again. I assume it was probably a few months. I think it was about 6 months of physical therapy before I could really was really kind of, quote, back to normal or almost back to normal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even really until several years later that I got the full range of motion back. Just had to keep stretching it.
Yeah. But you started playing hockey again right after.
Yeah, this happened in January 5th. And then I was on the ice playing hockey, September, October, whenever the season started.
I knew it.
Yeah. So just all throughout that process, it was crazy. Just God really solidified himself in my heart, I think, during that time.
That's awesome.
And just that grateful attitude. I was grateful that I could walk again, and I feel like many people will say, that they're not content with their lives. And, I got this and I got that. And they probably even had experiences similar to me. I think we've all probably had different experiences like that, traumas in our lives, obviously to various extents, that we'll look back on and we'll realize, oh, wow, I'm so thankful I'm not there. Like, I can walk. Thank the Lord.
Right.
But we lose that so quick. But somehow it stuck with me. So shortly after that, I always knew that I liked people, and I was always pretty social. I tended to be a leader in small groups and things like that. And in high school, this next defining moment was a teacher came to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of this peer mentorship program. And I think I must have been a junior in high school or something like that. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. And the teacher was like, well, you get class credit for it. I was like, oh, really? I can go, hang out and play games with, middle schoolers and get class credit. And so I started doing this. And man, I remember hanging out with this little boy. And he's probably, of course, he's an adult now by now, but I remember playing a game with him and knowing I have no idea what to say. No idea what to say. Like, he's telling me about his life. I'm like, I got nothing for you, man. I'm sorry. We kept playing Uno. And it was through that semester. My supervisor was the school social worker. And it was in that moment, or it was in that semester that I was like, I've got to have something to say to people. Like, I can't just not say anything. I got to learn to be like Jesus, man. I want to be able to say what he said and hit what he hit right in people's hearts. Like Jesus, I don't even know. Now that I'm saying this, I don't think Jesus ever said really the same thing twice. He would say it in a different way. He said a lot of the same messages, but at least it's not recorded that he said it exactly the same every time. It was just always exactly what that person needed to hear in that moment.
And some kind of a parable or story. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, I gotta learn how to do that. And so I think it was probably about that time, my junior, senior, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to go to college. I really didn't want to go to college. I did well in school. School wasn't super hard for me, but like, I didn't want to spend my whole life at school.
Yeah.
I wanted to get married, have kids, do the thing. Probably had it in mind to play professional hockey still at that time.
Pretty sure.
Actually, no, I think I was probably about that time that I was giving up on that, not completely giving up, but just knowing that probably wasn't going to happen. I was, 5'7" on my long leg, and I think 150 pounds. I've been trying to gain weight for 4 years. Eat peanut butter and jellies at midnight. But so I decided I had to go to college. And I started dating Candy. I think it was about midway through my junior year of high school, and we got serious pretty fast, and so we were pretty confident that we were going to be together. So we were starting to think about that. Went to Grand Valley, studied psychology, and it was probably Candy and I got married during my second year of college, and then it was probably in my late second year of college I realized that I'd learned a lot. I had a really good education at Grand Valley.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed my time there. But I realized that I wasn't a whole lot closer to having the words like Jesus did.
Yeah.
And to do I think I was more confident I wanted to be in something related to psychology at that point, and to really be adept at helping people. I knew that I was going to graduate school. Yeah. So started doing the extracurricular things that, if any of you are in psychology or getting your master's degree, like you are a lot more competitive going to grad school if you've done some research and stuff. So I started doing all that and decided I had to go to grad school. Decided if I'm going to go to grad school, I am going to go to grad school, never go back. So I'm going to get a doctorate degree, or at least I'm going to give God the opportunity to get me into a doctoral program so that I never have to go back to school. And I applied to 4 graduate schools, and I got into only one. I got into one. And nowadays, if you're an undergraduate student, like or if you don't know, let me tell you, you need to probably apply to at least 15 to 20 graduate schools. You need to do more research than I did. You need to have more experience than I did, because in hindsight, I don't know that I would have accepted myself. I mean, I probably wasn't the worst applicant, but I remember getting this one letter from Colorado State University. It was such a kind letter. And they're like, "Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for applying. Your resume was great. You met all of our criteria. We really wish that we could have you here. Unfortunately, we received 806 applications this time, and we're only accepting 6 students."
6?
6.
Holy smokes. Yeah,
I might be off on the numbers slightly, but I'm pretty confident that it was over 800 applications.
Even if it was 60.
I know.
It's still, like, that's...
Yeah, so I thought to myself, I'm like, wow. Okay. So I think the school that I got into, I know they were a lot less competitive, but I think they accepted on average like 40 or 50% of their applicants or something like that. I think they probably got like a couple hundred applications, and I think there were about 50 students in my cohort.
And what school?
It's called Forrest Institute of Professional Psychology.
Okay, cool.
Try Googling it. I'll waste a lot of your time. It's closed now.
Is it? Okay.
They actually closed the year after I graduated.
Okay.
It was a private for-profit school, and they had really good clinical training, but all I know is really, I didn't look into it, but the president was not doing great things with the money, and there was a little fiasco with that. So
that's I went to IC Tech.
Oh, yeah.
Some of you ever heard about what happened with that?
Yeah.
They been gone too. So it happens.
Yep. So thankfully, I got a good education. It was an APA accredited program. Got into an APA accredited internship. So that was really good. And man, I could tell you stories and stories about graduate school. I'll just tell you one story about graduate school. I remember it was in the summer after my second full year of graduate school. And about this time in most doctoral programs, you have comprehensive exams. Basically everything that you've learned so far on an exam.
No.
And one is a written kind of paragraph form. And you also have a clinical comprehensive exam where you actually basically demonstrate competence working with a client.
Oh.
In front of like 4 professors or something like that.
Yeah.
And I did the written portion, and you had to submit it through this program that tests for plagiarism. And it came back that my paper was like 43% plagiarized or something like that. And I knew that I didn't plagiarize any of it.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm freaking out on the inside. I can't even express to you the amount of freak out that, you've already spent all this money, all this time, all this energy for 2 years. And it would be one thing to be told, like, dude, you're not going to make this. Like, I'm sorry. Like, get out now,
Right.
And I could almost get that. Like, there's got to be gatekeeper functions along the way. But to be told that you plagiarized, that you copied other people's work to, like, try that. Anyway, I was mostly, like, sad. And I was like, what am I going to do? And, of course, I called my Nana. And my Nana was the best Nana you guys could ever ask for. She was so encouraging, and it's so crazy. She didn't accept Jesus until I think 2016. I think it was a year before she died. I think she died in 2017. But man, she loved Jesus. She demonstrated his love throughout a lot of her life, especially the second half. It was crazy. We were praying for her for that's a huge, that's an awesome testimony that we could share sometime. But we prayed
Yeah.
for her. I prayed for her for literally my entire life,
Mm.
from when I was very young. And my mom was praying, and my aunt were praying for her for, I think, 10 or 15 years before that. Anyway, I called my Nana, and she goes,
Right? What's that dean's name? I'm going to come down there and I'm going to tell him that there's no way my grandson plagiarizes.
my Nana was the best. She always believed the best in me.
Yeah.
She never faltered. She always told me, Ryan, you can do whatever you set your mind to.
Yeah.
She always believed in me. And even when I was in the wrong, I knew my Nana was going to have my back. Man, it was such a blessing. It is such a blessing to have somebody in your life who believes in you no matter what.
Yeah.
And my Nana was the living embodiment of how God believes in us no matter what.
Mhm.
No matter how many times we mess up, he's got the plan for us the next day.
Yeah.
And he's got the confidence that we can step into that. But
Yeah.
my Nana, she was awesome. Oh, and I'll put in a little a thing here. I've got to know my life verse. I don't remember exactly where I decided upon this, but my life verse is James 1:2-5. And it says, let it be pure joy when you experience trials of many kind, for the testing of your faith produces perseverance.
Mhm.
And the second part is actually, it says, I don't have it exactly memorized, but, and any of you who lacks wisdom, let him ask, and my Father who gives generously will surely give it to you. And it goes on to say, when you ask really with all your heart, and you ask without any doubt. But that was a big deal from, I think, middle school too. That was my life verse. During the time where I broke my leg, that's kind of what I was focusing on during the hard times. I was like, you know what, consider it joy when you experience trials. I'm learning, I'm growing.
Yeah.
God's using this to grow me into a person who is fully mature and complete. And so I remember that verse, just hanging out of that verse during this time with my comprehensive exams too.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I did not need my Nana to come down and bash in the dean's head.
So what
But
happened with
they
that?
figured out that there were some flaws with the program. They expect it to be about 5 to 10% plagiarized, because when you reference
Right.
a study or something, like, it's been referenced before and it's going to show up exactly
Got it.
how it is. So they realized that there were some errors, and they basically, I think, let us all go, because there were several people that kind of got flagged or whatever
Yeah.
because of the issues with the program. So anyway, I passed.
Nice. Let's go.
Yep. So I think it was about this time in graduate school that I really I was journaling, and I was focusing on being thankful
Mhm.
and asking for wisdom. And I'd done those things throughout my life, even from a very young age. But I remember the verse from both First Thessalonians that says, be thankful in all circumstances. And I don't remember the exact timing of this, but I'm guessing that was about this time in graduate school where I heard a sermon about how that it's not being thankful for all circumstances, but being thankful in all circumstances. We don't have to be thankful that I broke my legs. We don't have to be thankful for the stresses in our lives, because most of those aren't God's will for you. They're not other people's will for you. It is the nature of life. And
Yeah.
I'm going to talk a lot more about that in a different episode, why bad things happen. But there is always so much that you can be thankful for. And when you focus on that, the negative things, the stressors tend to have a lot less power over you and your emotions.
Yeah.
So after graduate school, well, actually, it was still during graduate school that another pretty profound thing happened in my life. My wife and I, Candy and I, got pregnant in 2013. It was early in 2013. It was, I think, my 4th year of graduate school. And we ended up having a miscarriage at about 8 to 10 weeks. And that was a really tough experience. Another experience where you ask God why. You say, God, what in the world is going on? And it's an opportunity to blame God.
Ooh.
It's an opportunity to blame other people, to get pissed, and it doesn't take away from the difficulty of some of these struggles. It doesn't take away from the emotional difficulty to trust in God.
Yeah.
But it does, I think, create a peace inside you that is not emotional. It's a spiritual peace. It's knowing that this life is very short in the grand scheme of things. There's not a lot from this world that's going to really matter other than your love and the Word of God. I might be oversimplifying slightly, but you guys get the point. There's what I think that we get really tied up in this earthly mindset of seeing what we see with our human eyes and hearing what we hear with our human ears, and thinking that, you know, this is my life. So I hear a lot of people say, like, this is my life. They're messing with my life, or, you know, I'm wasting my life, or my life sucks, or any of these things. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, those things could even be true. However, for the believer, our hope is in the Lord. Our hope is really in eternity. I really hang on to this too. I love how Paul says that to live is Christ and to die is gain. And he goes on to say, basically, he doesn't even live anymore. Like Paul, Saul, they're dead.
Yeah.
It's Jesus living in him. His desires are the desires of Jesus. And so to live, he's just going to keep living Jesus. And if he dies, what he's really saying, I think, in a healthy, appropriate way, is I'd much rather be in heaven with Jesus, I suppose in a more physical sense, than how you're with him right now.
Right.
So that time was difficult for us when we had the miscarriage, and you know, it's kind of cool now because we told our children, and we named the child Ezekiel, and our kids will still talk about how, you know, Ezekiel's in heaven, and I'll sometimes refer to Winter as my oldest, and they'll be like, no, I'm not the oldest, Ezekiel's the oldest. And we had a kind of a, you know, we had kind of a memorial, you know, between Katie and I when we lost our baby.
Yeah.
But it's now also a living memorial, and it is not sad anymore. Like I can look back and say that was a hard time.
Yeah.
I can even say, like, you know, I wish that wouldn't have happened, but it's not a painful memory, so to speak, that still impacts me in that way. It's actually more hopeful because I get to see him in heaven.
Yeah.
Spend millions of years hanging out. Oh, I could spend a whole podcast episode talking about each one of my kids. Well,
Yeah.
I will say Winter, our oldest, was born in 2015 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, while I was on my pre-doctoral internship. Arlo was born in December 2016 at Zeeland Hospital, and then we had Evergreen in 2022. And Matt, I'm sure you can relate to this, but like becoming a father, there's nothing like it.
No.
And I was talking to somebody the other day who just recently had a baby, and I was asking her, like, how did things change? Like, how did your perspective change when you had a kid? And she went off. You know, it's just like it completely changes everything when you have a child.
Yep.
I'm not saying that parenting is for everybody, but part of me wants to say that parenting is for everybody because I am so much more aware of how God feels about me now that I've had kids. Like, I remember wondering, like, am I ready? Of course, am I ready to have kids? You always kind of wonder that. Am I ready? You're never really ready. People know that. But you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't even cry very much. I don't get very emotional. But when my son was born, like when he came out and I saw him, I just started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, so beautiful. And, you know, let's just be honest. We don't think everybody's babies are beautiful. Like, there are some babies out there that we never say it out loud around them or anything like that. But like, they're not the cutest baby. But your baby, oh my God.
No matter what.
Yes, no matter. Your baby is just, it changes your heart. You do anything for your baby. So,
Absolutely.
man, yeah. So, God provided us a house in 2016 after we moved back to Michigan. Crazy how that happened. I was on a stipend of like $40,000 a year at the VA in Grand Rapids, and working my tour of duty, 8 to 4:30 on the dot every day. And thankfully we had decent insurance, but somehow we got a house. Still don't really know exactly how. I had student loan payments that were going on my debt to income ratio. I really don't know how that even happened. We weren't the highest offer either, even in 2016. I think there was a higher offer than ours, and we got ours accepted. Anyway, so we got a house. After my postdoc fellowship at the VA, I think I finally felt like this is after like probably almost 10,000 clinical hours, like with people and doing therapy and training and hours of supervision. I finally felt like, okay, I have something to say, a question to ask, something that can potentially help this person. I can see what's happening here, and I kind of know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so for any of you therapists out there that feel like you don't know what to say, definitely give it some years. Focus on your training, because it is more difficult, I think, than what people think. And it's probably, not probably, it is more difficult than even you can imagine when you're in graduate school learning that stuff. There's a lot more going on in that therapy room than what most people know.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately more than what some therapists know too. Even myself. But I joined a private practice and shortly after, or right out of my postdoc fellowship, and I thought that I was going to be there for a long time. I was like, this is at least my 10-year spot. I'm going to help them grow their practice. I'm going to, do my clinical work, supervise some people. And surprisingly, it turned south. And then the gist of that story is really that my goals were not near as aligned with their goals as what we thought. And they were not pumped about the work I was doing for their practice. And I was not pumped about people putting limitations on me or making assumptions about my intentions. And so we decided to part ways. And I was off on my own, started Hope and Wholeness Psychology Center officially in 2017. I think it was like early 2017. And it was earlier than I thought, but man, I remember praying to the Lord, like, Lord, just give me 12 clients this week. If I can get 12 clients and pay all my bills.
Yeah.
And he always came through. So I always had 12 clients, and it was probably not only a couple months later and I was full. I had, more clients that I knew what to do with. And I was also working part-time at another group practice called Psychology Associates of Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing to supplement. And that was also a really good experience. I had a great mentor over there that helped me start my private practice. And it was a combination of those two experiences. Having an experience at the first private practice I was a part of, where it felt like they were trying to keep everything tight. And that's their philosophy or their strategy, and that's okay. But they had a mindset of like, there's not enough for everybody. We don't want people stealing from us, so let's just keep it really tight. And when I went to Psychology Associates, and they didn't like that I was thinking about starting a private practice of my own. They felt threatened by that. And I went to Psychology Associates of Grand Rapids, and I told them, I'm like, guys, probably not going to be here long term, but if you're willing to help me out for a couple of years while I get my own practice going, I'd really appreciate it. They're like, absolutely, absolutely. And the psychologists there were older, quite a bit older than me, very well seasoned, and they were not threatened by me. They did not feel like I was on their turf. They were doing their thing, and there was nothing that was going to stop them from doing their thing. And I just love to get on board with that. They were easy to follow. And so I knew at that point, I had already been a leader in many scenarios, but I was developing how I wanted to be a leader in my private practice.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a leader that was generous, that had a mindset of abundance, that God's going to provide. And I wanted to be a leader that stored my treasure in heaven.
Yeah.
When I read the word, it's always pointing to the kingdom. It's the kingdom mindset that we really need to see our lives through. Is like, what is the kingdom impact of what we're doing? And as much as we can get focused on money and relationships and jobs and all kinds of things, those are real things. I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned about them or have an emotional response to them, but they're not the most real thing. There's no other way to say it, in my opinion. It's just not the most real thing. The most real thing is what's going with you to heaven.
That's right.
It's your love. It's the way that you love other people, starting with your family, starting with God, your family, and out from there.
Yeah.
And you love out in abundance. And I think that, like, I may not have had those words at that time of my life, but that is how we're supposed to be loved. We're supposed to love because he first loved us, and then we can love others, and then they can also love. But you really can't give something that you haven't received. I mean, you guys all probably have personal experience with this. I know I do. Like, if you're not loved, it is really hard to love somebody else. I mean, when you're not loved, you're going after getting loved. It's like, I got to get love.
Yep.
I got to get some fulfillment. I got to get something before I do anything else, and leads us up down some very tumultuous pathways at times. But
yeah. Like, sometimes you just don't know how to love. So you're really giving love, but you're really just taking.
That's right.
And that's, when you're like, God's got to have that wake up call one day. Like,
it's really crazy. It's really crazy to so many of us get into a new relationship or whatever it might be, and we think that we're loving that person. We think we're being loved. And 2 weeks later, 6 months later, 10 years later, we're like, that wasn't love. That wasn't love. That was some type of a drug, if you will. But that was not love.
Right.
Anyway, so I received this modeling kind of in this abundance mentality of like, there's plenty of clients to go around. Like, I'm going to share. And so when I started a group practice, I started bringing on contractors. I was like, you know what? If any of these people ever want to take their caseload somewhere else, that's fine. It's theirs. They paid me for it. We're good. At the end of every month, I tell my contractors, at the end of every month, when I pay you and you pay me, we're good. And I don't need any of them. I'm so happy and joyful and thankful and honored that they would choose to practice with me, but I don't need any of them. I don't feel a tendency to hang on to them, or that they owe me some type of loyalty. They don't. So since I started my practice, obviously God has really blessed it, and it's been so fun. It's been such a ride. But I have started, or I have helped a couple of other people, supported them starting their own practices. And I really am, I stay connected with them, here and there. They don't need near as much help now.
Yeah.
But I'm just I think about that, and sometimes I miss that. I'm like, oh man, I wish that they were still at my group, I wish that they were doing what they're doing in their own group at my group. I'm like, no, I'm so happy that they're doing what they're doing, and all that treasure, the amount I put into that, I'm like, that's going to be in heaven. They're loving on other people, even if they're not believers. They're loving on other people, and I've helped equip them to do that. So that's I think a big theme in my life, especially more recently, is that this theme of abundance, and generosity, and when it comes to all forms of social, emotional, financial assets, I totally believe in being a good steward of those things, taking care of, your rent payment first and stuff like that.
Right.
Taking care of your family first. But when we're doing that well, we ought to be experiencing overflow. So in 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, You guys think I'm going to say COVID, but
2020 COVID, oh no.
but I have been on my own in my own practice for about 3 years, and I had started, doing this group practice thing, and we moved offices a couple times, and it was going really well. And in the background throughout all this time, my dad actually had invested in several properties in Grand Rapids in 2015.
Okay.
My dad had read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh yeah, great.
And you read that one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I've read 90% of his books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was pretty mind-blowing, especially for growing up in a fairly conservative financial home, where, we budget, we work a W-2 job, we put our head down, we do the work, I definitely got the hard work thinking of my parents, that's been beneficial to me in many ways.
Yeah.
But in 2015, my dad he started really shifting his mindset, and it definitely rubbed off on all of us kids. And so in 2020, I was looking for an office building, and I looked at this office building, and it was way too expensive, way too expensive. I was like, oh man, this would be a good opportunity if it was not so expensive. And a few months later, it had dropped in price. And so I went and I looked at it in person, and I was like, oh, I wonder if this would work. I was like, it's kind of expensive. And the owner called me back, I don't know, a few months even after that. He goes, man, what do you want? And I was like, I mean, I want your building. I want to pay you a fair price for it, but I'm in a lease at this other building, and I still got 8 months on it. So like, I mean, I guess if you're really asking me what I want to own your building with 0 payments, with 0% down, until 8 months from now. Then he came back with, of course, not that exact offer, but an incredible offer, just an offer that only God could orchestrate.
That's awesome.
And it's like, and I would have this kind of mindset that I was learning about investing, and passive income and things like that. And so I got into this office building, and that was kind of the beginning of my real estate journey of like, this is awesome. I think my brother moved into a duplex at that time, and his renters are paying his mortgage for him. I'm like, man, this is a good way to start. And so I turned my office building into a little bit like a duplex where I have 4 tenants up in the front, and that helped pay the bills. I was like, yeah, this is good. And after about a year of that, I'm like, I really like this real estate stuff. I like this idea of passive income. I like this idea of don't just put your money in a retirement account. Think for a retirement account, but like, don't just put your money there. Like, use the money you have now to build passive income, to build wealth and influence that you can use, really for the glory of God is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But I think that in some ways, people do this with their emotional resources, as they store them up, they conserve them for this whatever they think is going to come. And they do, and it's most clear with their money. We save up for this retirement, and then oftentimes, definitely not all the time, but oftentimes people die with a lot of money.
Yeah.
My grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, and my dad was blown away by how much money he had at the bank. And that's not all bad, but the theme that I'm trying to express here is that money is a tool, and it's like putting a tool in your shed and never using it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really got on this real estate kick, and God, led me in a couple other directions. I started getting specifically into the short-term rental, vacation rental business, and picked up one of those in 2021, and that was just a fun project, and it's turned into a really fun thing to do and a really good income producer.
So like Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It did.
And so I probably around that time in 2020, maybe a little bit before that, I was really praying, like, God, what do you want me to do with my time, my energy, my resources? I read the book Keep Your Love On by Danny Silk. Love that book. I'm going to do lots of episodes on that, the themes from that book. But I'm like, how am I going to use my time, energy, and resources for you? And I was telling God, I was like, God, I feel like I'm underutilized. I was trying to be, well, I was really trying to tell God what to do. But I'm like, God, I'm good. Like, I got a lot to give, like, use me, reading all the books and saying, like, here I am, God, send me, and, of course, looking back, I think you have some different clarity looking back on that stage of your life. And I was pretty angsty at times of like, I got to do something. Like I'd have this energy pent up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like having money in the bank. Like I have money in the bank. What am I going to do with this? I got to do something with this money. It can't just be sitting there, I got this time. I got to be doing something with it, And so I think I was in and out of various stages of that type of emotional experience. It definitely wasn't like a bad emotional experience, but it was something that was on my mind frequently. Of like, what am I really doing? I want to do something meaningful and impactful. I want to reach more than just my 30 clients that I've seen.
Yeah.
And so I was praying. In 2022, I felt like the Lord told me, just rest, enjoy Evergreen. Evergreen was born in 2022. I should mention in 2019, we lived in Texas for 3 months. Had an amazing time at Lifestyle Christianity University. Crazy kind of a renewing of the Spirit. I think Candy would say that she was baptized in the Holy Spirit around that time. I didn't have a specific experience with that, but I definitely tuned in more to this God who actually talks to us.
Yeah.
And,
The living God.
That's right. I grew up in a home where we believed God spoke to us, but we didn't really practice it. We didn't really talk about it a ton. When we talked about praying and hearing from the Lord, it was more like us talking to Him, not as much listening for Him. And and then it's reinforced by your experience of like, I don't really hear an audible voice. I don't really hear much. Is this God? Is this not? Yeah. Anyway, so I was really listening for God in these years between 2020 and 2023. 2022, I just rested. 2023, I got the word discipline. And I was like, okay, that's a good word. I can do this. I'm like, God, I said, I would oftentimes tell God, if you just want me to see clients, that's all you want me to do. I will do this gladly for the rest of my life. As long as I know that that's where you want. Because I just want to be a part of what you're doing. And I don't care how small the part is. But God, I kind of do want to pick a big part of it. I'm like, but if that's not it, that's okay. He's just like, discipline. I'm like, okay. I made some progress with discipline. But at the end of 2023, which wasn't that long ago, I was like, it didn't go near as well as what I wanted to. I didn't meet all the goals I wanted to meet. And then God gave me this experience with my son that I want to spend kind of our final few minutes talking about.
Yeah.
I think I told you about this a little bit already.
Yeah.
We were sitting at the dinner table and my wife was talking about everything that is going on in between Palestine and Israel and the Jews and everything with that. And my wife was in tears talking about the stuff that was happening. It is sad. It's heart-wrenching. And then we've been praying for that whole situation at dinner time for the past couple of nights. And my wife didn't share in a lot of detail, but she shared a couple of things that she had read or seen. And my son Winter, it's all up, and he goes, I want to kill Satan. I'm going to take a sword and I'm going to go up to heaven with Jesus and we're going to kill him. He's so stupid. I can't believe he's doing all these things. And me and Candy were like, that's right. This is absolutely 100% the devil. Winter didn't get mad at the Israelites or the Jews. He didn't get mad at the Palestinians. He didn't get mad at Hamas or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. He got mad at the devil. We're like, that's correct. We're like, how are you going to do that, Winter? And he goes, I don't know. He was getting really frustrated. Like, how do I do this? And Candy, probably inspired by the Holy Spirit, goes, Ryan, why don't you tell Winter how you take your sword of the Spirit at work every day and how you fight the devil every day? I'm like, it's a good question. And then I thought about it and I told a little, and I was like, okay, I did see one plan today. I had to tap on the devil. And I talked about how this person, had this belief that, they were worthless. And I'm like, that 100% comes from the devil. And so I told Winter, I'm like, I helped this person come to a place where they didn't conquer that whole thing in one day, but they made some progress towards knowing their worth in Christ and knowing their identity in Christ. And I was like, and then I told a testimony. I kind of got on a roll. I told a testimony for all 5 of the patients I'd seen that day. And then a couple of them weren't even believers, but I was still fighting the devil. And I was getting teary. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm fighting the devil every single day. And Winter was like, had asked me, like, can I come to work with you today? I love it when you ask me that. And I was like, I was in tears. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really, and God, I think, just really communicated the message to me in that moment that I am doing what he wants me to do. I am doing what he's gifted me to do. Is there more? Sure. Absolutely. But I think I was planning on taking a sabbatical of being done with clients potentially for a long time.
Yeah.
Just, was getting burned out, not in a feeling of like being helpless or anything, but just like kind of bored and same old thing. And like, I want to do more, God. And so it, and also kind of in that moment, it was really confirmed to me. I was already thinking about some stuff for 2024. And it was confirmed to me that there's really, 4 big things to focus on for 2024. Which really came to this podcast is like, podcast is one of the 4 things that you gave me to focus on. We're going to plant a couple of open wholeness offices this year. Do podcasts, plant the open wholeness offices. I'm started a Kingdom Entrepreneurs group that I'm super duper pumped about. And that's really awesome. I'll talk about that at a different time as well.
Yeah.
Then kind of gave me the 4th thing of inspiration to transition my practice towards doing some root therapy. And I knew that wasn't my idea because I didn't want to do that. But I am excited about it because I know that God's behind it. And then in the days following that, I think this will possibly be more of a meaningful experience. I was like, man, God gave me what I've been asking him for years. But I didn't even really do a great job being disciplined. It's like I was in a process, and I've been told that several times before that, Ryan, you're in a process, and I believed it. No, I'm in a process. And so, but I was like, I was so gracious that I don't even think I really completed the process, so to speak, of really being disciplined and really spending that intimate time with him, and being disciplined with that. I didn't really come, but he gave me this anyway. He gave me a plan for 2024 anyway. And I'm just so grateful for that. And then, with
I was gonna say, I feel like as a believer in everything, you're in a constant state of refining anyways.
Oh yeah.
So like, you may not feel like you are disciplined, but you have become more disciplined than you were, which is the constant state of refining. And that's what I believe that God is looking for in us, was just because he loves it. He loves it just to see that we're working towards what he wants us to do. And like, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. We're all in a constant process of sanctification. And God has a plan and for this, and we are definitely not afraid of seeing it oftentimes for each thing that he does. But I can't emphasize enough, and I know that you're a big emphasizer of this too, is that intimacy with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Everything really comes from that. I tell my patients oftentimes that, sometimes we focus too hard on getting rid of a problem and not near hard enough on moving towards Jesus. Moving away from a problem or a bad situation or a bad habit is good. But if you're not moving towards God, you're probably not going to make it very far away from that bad habit. But when you move towards God, I'd say move towards the sun. The sun is so high and so powerful. And it is what it is. It can't help what it is. It can't turn down the heat. But it's going to stay where it is. And it's up to you if you want to move closer to it or more further away from it. So when we move towards the sun, it melts off these external layers that are not what we are like. It melts off the baggage that we're carrying around. And that intimacy with God is just so important, because the more that we know who we are, the authority that we have, that we are loyal, that we have power and authority, that God, who owns it all, who possesses it all, wants to give us authority and stewardship over those things. The closer we move to him, the more our desires align with his, the more that we don't desire those bad things we're trying to avoid. And, you know, many of you maybe have sins in your life that you're thinking of right now that you want to move away from. Maybe it's a bad habit. Maybe it's even a person or a relationship that you need to move away from right now. And that's good. But if you're just move towards God, let that be your primary intervention against whatever it is you're working against. Some people will come to me once a week. I'll have a great counseling session. I will be motivating for them, supportive for them. But if they haven't pursued Jesus during the week, that one session that they had with, it's not going to be really solving.
So you say that sometimes it becomes repetitive.
Absolutely. Which is part of the reason for me switching things up clinically too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I want to see people not repeating those patterns. I'm trained to see patterns. And you guys who know me, you know that I point out patterns all the time. I point out, I mean, I had somebody come into me the other day who was really excited about a new relationship. And then after some questioning, we're like, oh, shoot, this is the same pattern. To realize that something that he thought was good was a repetitive pattern. But he was able to refocus on Jesus and pursue Jesus, pursue God's will for his life. And I haven't talked to him today, but I know him well enough to know that he's experiencing spiritual peace today, because although he's probably got some emotional turmoil and other things, when you pursue God, those things tend to shut off. So, man, that is a really shortened version of like almost my whole life. But so, yeah.
Well, it's awesome to be here, and thank you for sharing with me as well, and with everybody else. So
yeah, thanks for letting me talk to you, man.
let's go.
Yeah. So thank you guys all for tuning in. I hope that this was meaningful. I'm sure some of you were really, I don't know, curious. That might be pretty insightful for you to learn kind of where I'm coming from, where I've been. So thank you for tuning in. And I look forward to hanging out with you guys more in the future.